of Te Puna Kōrero. I'd now like to invite Councillor Hayward to lead us in the karakia, please.
Kia ora no, toru wha. Whakatakata hau ki te uru. Whakatakata hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta. Kia mā tātara ki tai. E hi ana, te atakura. He tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Let's go Phoenix.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Let's move to apologies, and I note that we have apologies from Councillor Johnson, Nalo, councillors. Johnson, Nalo.
No, only Johnson.
No, we have apologies from the others as well, because we do not have, I was going to get to that, Mayor Baker. Apologies from Councillor Johnson, who is ill, and also apologies from Councillors Nalo, Ford, and also from Taku Parai, because we do not have internet up and aren't able to let them come in via the ether. So it's a bit unfortunate. However, we still have a quorum. I'm going to move those apologies. Thank you very much, Councillor Philo. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 3 is public forum. There is no one to speak at a public forum, although we have speakers coming for our key item today. So I'll now get to, which is probably even more important given our topic for today, conflict of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts of interest? Mayor Baker.
I have like to declare I'm the patron and a member, and Phil, my partner, is the president at the Whitby Bowling Club. However, he was not involved in the writing of their submission on the alcohol fees bylaw, and I can bring an open mind to the debate and decision making on the matter.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Is there anyone else that Councillor Waddle?
Yes, I'm also a member of the Whitby Bowling Club and hold a manager's certificate, but I was not part of the submission from the club on the alcohol fees bylaw, so I can bring an open mind to this discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Waddle. Yes, Councillor Hayward.
Te Māria matua upoko. I am a member and the patron of the Titahi Bay Bowling Club. At no point had the club contacted me, nor have I participated in any development of the submission in regards to this bylaw. Furthermore, unlike in a previous instance, I believe that there is no impediment to me being able to provide an open mind in hearings and deliberations on this matter. Kia ora.
Thanks, Councillor Hayward. Any more bowlers that want to hold up their hands? Sorry. Anyone else want to declare anything? Okay. I will note, thank you for those declarations. I do point out, though, that you may have to do this again on the 26th of Te Puna Kōrero meeting, because this is not a decision-making meeting with regard to this. We're here to listen to people who have kindly come along to speak to us. So those conflicts of interest declarations, let's move on now to notification of extraordinary business, and there are no notifications of extraordinary business, which brings us to the confirmation of the minutes of the 21st of March. I'll move them as a true and correct record. Councillor Trillin, thank you for seconding. Are there any corrections, changes to those minutes? If not, I will put those minutes as a true and correct record. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. So this now brings us to the substantive items on our agenda this meeting, and the first is item 7.1, which is this is an alcohol fees bylaw hearing. we have a report. I'm going to move this report to open it for discussion. I have a seconder. Thank you very much, Councillor Duncan. Now, I think, councillors, we've spoken about this. Does anyone wish to make any comments before we start? No? All right. We have a number of submitters, and we will start with Shane Phillips. So, Shane, if you'd like to come up to the microphone there and switch it on. I'll note that you have, that one there. Is it on green? Yep, it is now. Okay, just so that you know, you've got 10 minutes. You don't have to take all your 10 minutes. A bell will ring at 8 minutes, which will give councillors opportunity to ask any questions if they so wish. Let's just take it from there. So your 10 minutes starts now.
Good, thank you. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you guys today. My name is Shane Phillips. I'm the Regional Manager for Hospitality New Zealand. Hospitality New Zealand is a non-for-profit organisation. We represent 2,500 members across the country. We're the champions of hospitality. We seek and recognise and celebrate the contributions that hospitality makes to our communities. We strongly oppose the alcohol fees bylaw. As stated, we recognise the council is facing cost pressures, as per most businesses across New Zealand. The hospitality sector is still recovering from the lockdowns of COVID-19. They've had significant increases in all expenses, from rents, from insurance, from wages to supply issues. These increases have obviously affected how they can operate, and moving forward, any further increases such as these licensing fees is only going to hurt them further. We've heard from our members that these will influence their opportunities to their hours that they operate, which will also affect employment throughout the community and that as well, and opportunities that they have for serving the community moving forward. We suggest an increase of roughly 30%, which is in line with the inflation, not the 428% over 3 years, which has been suggested. We also seek to further rationale why the licensing should be covered 100% by the licensee holders. We ask there just be a bit more transparent around what the costs are and what it is that you need to recover, and for that to be a lot more clearer for our members and the other hospitality businesses in the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane. Are there any questions from councillors? Yes, Councillor Duncan.
Thanks, Shane. You are aware that there has been no increases in the costs of this since 2013, aren't you?
Yes. Yep.
So it's been a pretty good ride up to now, as far as you guys are concerned. When you say, could it be more transparent about the costs, do you not understand what the costs are involved in doing the licensing?
Yes, no, we do understand that. We do see that. Other councils, when they have put the similar things through, have clearly outlined what they're doing, what it is they're doing, why they're increasing, and it's been a lot more clearer and more transparent in what those costs are, and also what they're doing to reduce those costs.
All right, Councillor Duncan. Are there any other questions from councillors? Yes, Councillor Philo.
Kia ora, Shane. Thanks for coming in. You mentioned that the hours that they operate might be affected, as well as what they can, the offerings to the community. Are you able to just expand a little bit on that, particularly around how the operation hours?
There's smaller businesses in particular. with the increased fees and everything else and stuff, what they're looking at is where they've operated, for example, some, the smaller clubs and stuff, where they've operated maybe 2 or 3 days a week, to serve their members on those days, and now being forced to look at, at other options, like can they actually operate during those times, and having to look at, we might be put into a position now where we have to cut down the times that we're open and the services that we can provide to our community. And also with the increased fees, it puts a lot of pressure on the smaller businesses to then try and increase their turnover to be able to meet those needs.
Okay, thank you. So it's about the overall, this adding to the overall cost of the operations.
100%. And, for some of the smaller businesses and stuff, the licensing is is one of their big overheads.
Yes, Councillor Wehapi.
Hi, Shane. Just a question. So for already established businesses, an increase for obviously a non-licensed renewal is only once every 3 years. Is that really going to affect now as an operation for a business?
Yeah, because like I said, it's another big cost on top of everything. They already face massive increases across the board on everything else. And so because it is such a big fee increase, 100% it's going to affect them.
Councillor Trillam.
Thank you. Cheers, Shane. So speaking to the issue we're trying to address, obviously you'll be aware at the moment that the bulk of the costs for these, for licensing, is borne by ratepayers. And so we're trying to find a way to be able to shift that. To be able to shift that burden, do you think it would be easier if this was phased in over a period of years, if we were to progress with some sort of increase, as opposed to doing it all up front? Would this be more palatable if we were to do it, say, over a 3-year period, slowly phasing it in?
Slowly phasing it in would be ideal, but also at a much lower rate than what is proposed.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, thank you, Shane, and thank you for the points you've made. All right, can we have Sarah Thompson and Cliff McDonald?
Kia ora tātou,
Kia ora.
everybody.
So, are you both going to talk, or
So I'm going to do the main talk. I'm just going to back up just on a few of the issues that we have raised, because I need to explain who I am.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just making sure that you know that you've got to turn your mic on if you're going to talk. That's all. So, as per the last speaker, you have 10 minutes, starting now.
Okay. Kia ora, everybody. I am a licensing agent, a liquor licensing agent, so I do licenses for people. And that puts me in the position of maybe being the only one here who can see what happens in every single jurisdiction in the country in relation to licensing. And it gives me in the position that I can see the differences. I crossed out the word inefficiencies and put differences, but I can see the differences in the processing in each jurisdiction. So I'm not going to cover off what Shane did in terms of the cost aspects. I mean, I can tell you, because I see this with all my clients, that the cost impacts of what's happening at the moment are massive, let alone the other thing which is happening in Wellington at the moment, that the sentiment in Wellington is severely depressed, and that hospitality in the Wellington region is being hit. That's all I'll say. Because the moment disposable income is being hit, hospitality gets hit. It's just at the moment, those sorts of things. So I won't talk too much about that. But what I want to talk about is if you want a lively, friendly, open city. You know, Porirua benefits from having that, from having a place where people can come out safely. Licensees know that, you know, in on-licenses, where people drink there, they are actually safer. And if you talk to police, they will tell you that off-licenses, where people buy it to take it home, is where a huge amount of the harm happens. And if you're going to push people into off rather than on, that increase in difficulty will happen. The other thing is, a lot of these venues provide things over and above just their businesses. So the trust venues, for example, so I'm here on behalf of Legends Sports Bar, they put over $2 million into Porirua every year through what they do. Clubs provide social opportunities for older residents, those new to the area, they help with loneliness. There are all those sorts of things. Many of the clubs are not very financial and even now struggle to pay the fees. Hospitality businesses create employment for lots and lots and lots of people. They offer opportunities for diverse types of people. They offer roles for lesser skilled people. They offer people roles for young people. And I think the latest pieces that come out say that it's 24-year-olds and under who are suffering with, are in the most unemployed range. Over it. So, yeah, a lively, open city that employs people where those venues pay back into the city. They're also ratepayers themselves, so moving it from ratepayers to ratepayers, everybody pays rates. And commercial rates are much higher than residential rates. So you can't say that you're moving it, really. I suppose also because of the position I am in, I can see lots and lots and lots of ideas of improving the efficiency of the processing. And I talk to Nick usually weekly over various things that I'm doing. And I know, for example, why does every single council develop its own online tool? Every single council is trying to do it. Porirua hasn't done it yet. Good idea. Borrow Wellington's. Get it white labelled and get it put up. Much cheaper, get a much better licence application in. I won't go through everything that I've said in my submission because I'm sure you've read it. But those are the sort of points. My points are costs and impacts on hospitality at the moment. Secondly, you want a lively, open city where those venues provide all the benefits they do to this city. And thirdly, that there's lots of things you could do, we could do together, and I'm happy to help. We could do things to improve the efficiency and reduce the cost of the licensing processes. Cliff, would you like to?
Hello, my name's Cliff McDonald. I'm the owner of the Mariner Bar. I've owned the bar since 2019. So I've seen quite a change in our cost structure over that time, but also we've had to go through COVID-19, which has been a challenge. And so personally, I've seen the value of my business drop by about, several $100,000. And it's mainly, when you look at the impacts of COVID, staff not really wanting to go to work, scared of going to work, increases in minimum wages significantly. I mean, between 2017 and I think 22 or 23, the minimum wage has gone up by 42%, whereas the CPI was, I think, 17%, something like that. So we've had this massive increase in our cost structure. I mean, the pint of beer at our bar has gone up from $7 to $8. I mean, with these increases, if you extrapolate that out, we'd have to charge $42. It's just like, I look at these things realistically and I go, how can you justify it? For $4,000, I go, right, as a layperson, okay, that's $40 hours at $100 an hour. I mean, even if you look at the Reserve Bank, and this is talking the medium fees, and it looks here, I haven't had a close look, but it looks like the annual fees going up too from 632 to 3,337. But, you know, I get 527% on the 3 yearly fee increase myself to 4,000. If you get the inflation calculator at the Reserve Bank, if I go back to quarter one, where is it here? Sorry. It's on here. Yeah, quarter one 2013 to quarter one 2024, $816 would go to 1,080. You know, or let's go back 3 years from that. You see, quarter one 2010 till 2024. That's the extra 3 years. We're talking about phasing this in. I mean, it's 1,156, but we've got 4,000. I can't see it, and I've lost hundreds of, thousands of dollars in my business. You know, that's all I can say.
We are supportive of late application fees, definitely. So no problem with that. And absolutely support the idea of charging for the public notice. Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, you know, for a layperson, I just can't see that increase. I just go, where is it? We can't charge that. You know, people, our turnover's down. People are struggling, you know, to pay $8 for a pint of beer. And I mean, at the bowling club, I mean, they're selling it for $5.50, I think, for a Heineken. I mean, we're not a club. We have to pay all our staff, you know, a reasonable wage. So it's just an onslaught of costs. And look at Wellington. I mean, you know, you can see what's happening in Wellington. You know, Wellington is getting destroyed. It will turn around, but this is what can happen. You got to think about this. It's a cumulative effect. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah and Cliff. Councillors, do you have any questions for Sarah? Councillor Trillin.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to clarify for Cliff when you're talking about the potential cost increases.
Yeah.
And you mentioned around having to charge, was it $42?
Yeah, well,
Could you just talk a bit further to that?
Yeah, well, look, if I was to just say, right, okay, I'm going to go to my customers and put this percentage increase, that like the licensing fees, onto an $8 pint of beer, I got $42. You know, like, I don't know, I might be calculating it wrong, but I get 529% increase on the $800 over that 4 years. And if I just extrapolate that onto $8, imagine me going to a customer and saying, oh, I'm going to charge $40 for a pint. We just wouldn't have anybody there. And so I suppose from the council perspective, think about how, think about that if you had to justify that to your customer.
I see. So to clarify, you weren't saying that this change would mean you would have to charge?
No, absolutely not. I'm just looking at, you just think about that. If you owned a bar and you went to your customer and said, hey, and you could never, no matter what, they would just walk out. Even if you said, we had a meteorite hit the bar and we've got all these extra costs. If you just put $40 on a pint, they just walk out. They'd go down to the mill or the supermarket and buy a box. We're up against that. $40 for a Heineken, a box of Heinekens. They're struggling to be able to afford to come into licensed premises, and it's the safest place to drink. In my opinion, we've got skilled people. And so, as Sarah said, you push people out. We see them out in the mall getting boxes of Codes and obliterating themselves. They're safer in our bar. We provide a service. We really do. you know. So that's, that's...
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And I guess further to that as well, and this might be for Sarah actually, just in relation to, you mentioned you've looked into other jurisdictions in the country, you can see what's going on. Do you have anything you can refer us to in terms of evidence around statistics of shifts that you've seen around similar proposed changes or anything like that?
So the only other jurisdiction that's doing anything is in Wellington, where they're going to put late fees up, which I think is fair. I think if people are late doing things, well then, like that costs more. I think no one else is yet. I'm just waiting for them to fall because you guys are doing it. But I don't think that. I personally think that what would be better, and when I look at all the licenses, I do 150 licenses a year. So that's where I'm coming from. A time-based approach, I think, would be fairer in the sense that if it's honestly a renewal of a known person, of a known risk, of a known everything like that, it's a renewal, there's been no NOAs, there's been no problems with the licence, that should be a tick box exercise and be not cost as much. If you were somebody trying to do something very weird in a new place with something different, with, inexperienced licensees, with all of those kinds of things, charge through the roof. Don't care. But I think a time-based or risk-based approach would be more palatable and be better.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I think our 10 minutes is just about up, but we could start another question if there is one, and I'll let it go. Councillor Duncan, sorry, you've got to stay there just for a...
That's all right.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for your presentation, and my heart goes out to you for your business. It must be tough. But if the council had, as they probably should have, increased the fee by the CPI perhaps each year, you would be up at that price now anyway, wouldn't you?
Not according to the Reserve Bank inflation calculator. I don't get that increase.
So if you go back to 2013, when the last when the fee was set.
I think the issue, Councillor Duncan, is we weren't at full cost recovery in 2013. So you're starting from a different level. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to, I think we're clear around that now, but thank you very much for your presentation.
Yep.
You've given us food for thought. Thank you.
Can I ask you, sorry, when you announce people, could you announce it? Because I've got Councillor Johnson and Councillor Ford texting me. They just can't hear the names of the people when they sit down. Sorry, because so they can watch on the live stream and they're messaging.
Yeah, I thought I had announced their names. Yeah. All right. Yes, can I ask Philippa Christie from the Plimerton Bowling Club? Can you hear that, people? Yep. Yes.
Got to be out of here. Me the front of the club.
You'll have to ask the Plimerton Bowling Club.
Pretty much the same. So
That's a bit of, ooh.
apologies for mucking about.
Go for it. We've got John Spence from the Whitby Bowling Club. Go for it, John.
Thank you very much.
And then we'll have Philippa Christie from the Plimerton Bowling Club. Thank you very much, Philippa, for doing that. Okay, away you go, John.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Thanks for coming today. Yes, John Spence from the Whitby Bowling Club. I'm the secretary there, at least until the end of the financial year. But I think you've probably got a gist of what's going on with the people who are here today. And I think the Plimerton Bowling Club is probably going to be similar, albeit we're not quite a business like the Mariner and the other pubs. I think what we basically are really concerned about is the scale of the increase. 428% over 3 years. No one's disagreeing with the fact that costs are going to rise. And I think you were saying 2013 since the last rise. So I mean that's 10 years, and that's quite acceptable. We're in that sort of environment at the moment where wages go up and therefore costs go up. So there's no doubt about it that the clubs obviously accept. It's simply as we heard in the last few minutes, especially from the Mariner, the scale and the increase. So that's what we object to is, and firstly is we accept a rise in cost. It's just the scale. 428% over 3 years is something just way out there. Second is the Whitby Bowling Club, and most of the clubs around here and most of the bars around here are local people. And so you're saying that the costs have got to be borne by the ratepayers. Are you actually punishing the ratepayers twice? In that I can say that 99.9% of the people who have rented the bar and the Whitby Bowling Club have been local people, ratepayers. And the Whitby Bowling Club itself and all the bowling clubs and all the pubs and so on, like the Mariner here, they are ratepayers. So, are you punishing the ratepayers twice with such huge increases? And again, I think the previous speaker spoke about efficiencies. What you've done a review. I presume it's an in-house review. I think of the costs. So you've just looked at it. It seems to us you've just looked at it. Right, ratepayers can pay it. That'll solve the problem. We'll put it up 428%. What about, as the previous speaker said, about efficiencies? Have you looked at your own systems? I'm not quite sure if you have. I don't know. Is it a transparent process? We don't know if there's a better way of doing it, and I think the previous lady said there is a better way of doing it. Have you looked at that, rather than just slam a 428% increase on the ratepayers, on the clubs and so on? And when you look at some of the costs, I think the previous speaker at the Mariner, spoke about it, and if you'd read my submission, I just threw in a couple of things. And I think one councillor said about, you only have to renew every 3 years. Well, the renewal for the club, for a club licence, goes from $368, and that goes up to $1,941 all of a sudden. When people want to hire the club, that they pay $63.25 for a special licence application. That will go up to $333, just like that. And when you look at we booked. We're going to the airport on Monday, and we booked a shuttle. It's $89. That would go up to $469 if we were doing it with a 428% increase. And when you put that in, what I'm trying to do there is just slightly put it into perspective about the scale of what you're proposing. It's just the scale. This massive increase on costs, and you're punishing ratepayers twice, because the ratepayers are paying to get the licence done, and the ratepayers are paying when they actually hire the venue or go to the venue. And that probably pretty much sums it up. I think you're going to hear pretty much very similar from other people. Oh, and if you want a Big Mac combo, it goes up to $79.20. If you're looking for a Big Mac combo. I think I've pretty much summed it up. So it's the scale, punishing ratepayers twice, other efficiencies in your own process. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Can I just ask for this, because there seems to be some confusion here, and people are making points about cost increases. Can I just ask the writer of this, Angela, that in 2013, can you confirm that we were not at full cost recovery then?
Through the chair, I can't confirm, as our records go back to 2017, and I can't be confident about that. I can try and find those records in our system, but because it's so long ago.
I think that would be useful just to make sure that we're comparing apples with apples, because what we're talking about here is, as I understood it anyway, was that this is going to full cost recovery, and we were not recovering all our costs. Efficiencies aside, which is a separate matter, and I think you've made some good points about that. I just wanted to be clear that we are comparing apples with apples. So, those cost increases are because we're going to full cost recovery, all right, as a principle.
We accept that the full cost recovery, but that's at the ratepayer's expense. So what we're saying is it's going full cost recovery, so it's not a burden on the ratepayers. So but you're paying, the costs are going to be covered by the ratepayers. But whenever they go to a venue or hire a venue, ratepayers, they are ratepayers, and so you're punishing the ratepayers.
I think that's called user pays. Yeah. So, do we have a question from Councillor Weehapi?
Hi, John. Just a question, if you can kind of give us how many special licences would the Whitby Bowling Club apply for each year?
I think it's about a dozen. It's usually about a dozen. I think so. I've only been doing it for the last 12 months, so I can't actually tell you accurate, but I think I spoke to one of our people, and I think it's around a dozen.
So you'd have at least a special function on every month?
Yes, it's mostly birthday parties, family gatherings, and we've had the bar open every Friday night for members who come along, and but otherwise it's mostly for smaller functions. And so at the moment they're paying $63 to apply for that special licence, but in 3 years' time they'll be paying $333.
Maybe. We don't know that yet.
Right. Is that it? Councillor Weehapi? Councillor Hayward?
Thanks, John.
Baker.
Normally I just let you guys say your piece, but there's a piece in there that got me tweaked. And so I just want to tease out your thoughts on this. This whole issue of ratepayers paying twice. Accept the fact that in your submission, the majority of the members who come to the Whitby Bowling Club are already local residents, and so therefore ratepayers. And in that scenario, they would be under full cost recovery, would be in effect having to pay out of their own pocket to use a service diverted through the licence fee. But under status quo, they would be subsidised by ratepayers in general, which would include the ratepayers who attend the Whitby Bowling Club as well. Can you give any comment as to why I would think that would be a specious argument? Ratepayers are still paying in one way or another, whether they be a subsidy through the lack of cost recovery or through fees and charges, which is direct cost recovery.
Can you repeat that?
Perhaps, no, because this actually gets to the point here of the argument which says that ratepayers are paying twice.
Are they paying?
But they are paying twice already because they pay as ratepayers to cover the cost of implementing the system that's already in place. That money didn't disappear, did it?
Oh, yeah, I'll take your point. And so which comes to point two is simply the full cost recovery is the 428%, and I think the councillor said that, if you brought it in over maybe a longer period of time, it could be handled better. But over a 3-year period, 428% is just knocking everybody around.
All right.
I'm not sure. I apologise if that didn't quite answer your question.
No, look, I think the point is taken, and
yeah.
Right.
So
Mayor Baker.
Yeah, it's not actually for John, it's for you, and it's from Councillor Ford. You've asked the staff a question. She would like you to check the percentage in 2013 of recovery they were charging for the fees.
Yeah, which is, I think, the point that was made.
Sorry, it's hard being two people.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
There's a term for that. Okay, no, point taken, and it is noted. Thank you very much. Okay, there being no further questions, John, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And now, Philippa. It's now Philippa Christie from the Plimerton Bowling Club. Oh. Philippa and okay, and Barry
I think it's
Graham.
still on, isn't it? Yeah. Tēnā
All right.
koutou katoa.
Your 10 minutes.
Ko Philippa Christie tēnei. I am the president of Plimerton Bowling Club, so I'm representing 143 actual members. So I thought there's been a lot of repetition, and I'll try not to repeat it, but I think the repetition goes to the fact that this is a very real concern for a lot of us. So I thought that you might like to know a little bit about Plymouth Bowling Club so you can see how this will affect us. In short, what makes us tick is the members. The club provides a facility for people to play competitively and socially, as well as being a venue for other social events such as card playing. It provides a place for members largely from the Porirua region, as well as people from the wider community to come and socialise and play bowls. So the majority of us are bowlers of a certain age. So Plymouth Bowling Club plays an important role for the social interaction for a number of our members, particularly senior citizens. It helps us to keep fit, healthy, physically and mentally. So we have members still playing in their 80s. We have one member in his 90s. And they come along to the bowling club on a regular basis because it's important for their mental health and well-being. ACC has recommended bowls as an excellent game for elderly people to play, as it encourages appropriate stretching and exercise and keeps people active and socially connected. So this is important all year round, not just on fine days in the summer, and we've got the facilities to play all year round. So the reason I'm laying this out for you is I want you to get a picture of how this will affect people who are on fixed incomes, largely. So ask any bowler, and they'll tell you that there are many fewer bowling clubs around than there were years ago. In Porirua, it's Titahi Bay, Whitby, and us. The old Porirua City Club's gone, and we're the last ones left standing. The financial viability of many clubs is at risk. Banks, as we discovered when we inquired after a loan for our new green, they won't loan money to bowling clubs. So that we could play bowls all year round, all the members clubbed together to loan the club the finances to pay for the new artificial green. And 5 years on, of course, we're still paying back the interest on those loans to the members. I might add, we didn't ask Porirua City Council for anything for this because, you know, we've tried to pay our own way and we understand. So what is the function of the bar at the club? Typically, it's a place where members gather for a chat and a drink after playing on club days or in other competitions. So for the vast majority of people, it's just 1 or 2 drinks before they go home. So if you pass by the club on any other night, after 6 o'clock, you'll very rarely see the lights on. So the club is for the club, for bowling, not for the bar. So we understand that it's reasonable to incur some sort of increase in licensing fees, but we feel the magnitude, as other speakers have mentioned, the magnitude is just unreasonable. For our club, the proposed rise, and I'm quoting the same figures for the annual fees, will be, for the year one, 142%. You've got it in your own literature, you know these things. 285% in year 2, and as has been mentioned many times, 428% in year 3. Costs should be so great in the first place. And I think one of the previous speakers mentioned that they've never been threatened with being closed down, should have to pay a huge amount every 3 years for relicensing. Surely there must be some sort of savings that could be made there. So yes, we make a modest profit from our bar, but it goes towards the upkeep of our facilities. And we rely on our mostly elderly volunteer membership to maintain the buildings as much as possible. We apply for grants where we can, but these are increasingly difficult to get. So this year, we've been given one small grant to buy bowling arms to assist those who are disabled so they can carry on bowling. So you speak of full cost recovery model. I'm just curious as to why sports clubs like ours should be singled out for that. We're all ratepayers, and we've had the argument about the ratepayers paying again. But would you expect to recoup the full amount it costs to run any other venue? I mean, I don't personally swim in the swimming pool, but I'm very happy for my rates to go towards that, and so that other people can. I'm very happy to for my rates to go towards the library, because I like going to the library. But I wouldn't, I don't see how our small club is clobbered when we've got a mostly elderly membership who are on fixed incomes. So it seems like we're being treated as though we're a pub or a restaurant, and we're not. We're not open to the public. We're a small sports club with a small bar. So to summarise, for me, the proposed increases in charges, it threatens the financial viability of our club. It's not, in our opinion, justified. We struggle to survive as it is, and these increases will only put more pressure on a club which performs a very valuable community service. So we would like to urge Porirua City Council to reconsider these proposed increases and to recognise that small clubs like ours, we do fulfil an important role in keeping Porirua residents healthy, happy and socially connected. So thank you for letting me make this submission.
Thank you very much, Philippa. Are there any questions from councillors? Councillor Weehapi.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Thanks, Philippa. The first is, so you are totally against an increase overall, or is it just the scale of the increase that is proposed?
No, we're not against the increase per se, because we understand that we do need to pay more. We understand that, but it's just the increase for us is huge in terms of everything else that we've got a rate rise of 47%, for example, for our insurance, for our green, and for our clubhouse it's even more, I think. So, you know, we're getting hammered in all directions, really, for a club that's mainly for sports purposes.
Thank you. So my second question is very similar to what I asked the Whitby Bowling Club in regards to providing a community facility for playing bowls. How many special licences would the Plimmerton Bowling Club apply for each year?
Well, this year we applied for 2 for changes in the hours that we are normally open for,
Is that it, Councillor Weehapi? Was that an 8 or 10 minute ding? 8. Are there any other? Yes, Councillor Trillin, you have a question.
Cheers, thank you, and thank you for your submission. I'd just like to tease out a little bit more that the comments you made around currently there's a modest profit that's made from the bar that's then obviously invested back into the club. Could you just speak a little bit more to the significance of that and the sorts of things you're able to use it for, and sort of roughly how much we're talking?
Yes. I might just have to defer to the Treasurer here, because she's given me some figures and I just want to make sure. 23K for this year.
Okay.
Yeah. And that all goes back into the club for the buildings, and because we've got a very old building and we're having to nurse it through. So it all goes directly back.
Okay, thank you. And for context, how much percentage-wise roughly does that 23,000 represent in terms of the total revenues of the club? If you weren't making that profit, how significant of
it's hugely. We don't. We try to keep the fees down for our members, but for example, excuse me, we all pay $2.35 to be a member at the club, and then it goes down gradually, depending on if you play competitively or socially. So the bar is the only thing that we get more money from. That's the only thing.
I see. So would it be fair to say that you're concerned that if this goes ahead as has been proposed, you would have to put up fees for members to be able to make up for a potential shortfall?
Yes, that's exactly what we would have to do.
Okay, cool.
And, yeah.
Sorry, what?
Yeah.
Oh,
And across the bar.
across the bar.
Sorry, thank you very
Sorry.
much for those. Can I just a point of clarity for me? 23,000, is that revenue or profit?
That's profit.
Right, thank you. Just a point of clarification. So that ends your 10 minutes with
Yeah,
some
that's-
questions. So thank you very
Thank you.
much to both of you for coming along.
Sorry.
All right. Now, can I call Mark Hughes from the supply room? So, Mark, I guess you know you've got 10 minutes. Yep, 10 minutes, but a bell will ring at 8 if you want us to ask some questions.
No problems.
Okay.
No problems.
Starting now.
23,000 profit from the Whitby Golf Club. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I've lived in the Porirua Basin for over 30 years, and I've run businesses pretty well over that. I currently run 3 businesses within the Porirua community. I employ 70 people. I can guarantee you, while the places look busy and everything has got this picture and we make it look nice and all that, I have not made a cent out of the Porirua in the last probably 5 years. 24,000 profit, that would be wonderful. To break even would be fantastic. What keeps getting lost is, and I would invite any one of you and challenge any one of you to come and run my supply room for 1 week and make $1. Any of these increases are not easy to cover over. In the last 3 months, we've had to spend $24,000 on just shit breaking down. I took a moral stand with an established supply room. It first started as Hell Pizza, and then it became more of a bar, which was rubbish because the patronage was rubbish, so we chucked them out, and then we made the venue to pretty well what it is. But at the moment, with wages running at 38% of turnover, food costs 38%, 43% for wages, and 33% for OPEX, this is falling under. You do the maths, and you tell me where the pot of gold is, because I'd love to find it. If it weren't for the fact that the Bank of Mark is tipping significant amounts of money, the supply room should have been closed up 5 years ago. It's not easy. And listen, okay, we're all going through the costs. We're all going through exactly the same in business. I can assure you that we are looking for, this is an epiphany. And this is what this appears, is that somebody's made the discovery. We haven't put these up since 2013. Let's smash them back and get them back and get full cost recovery. But I ask you, do you get full cost recovery for building consents, resource consents, everything like that? I don't know, but we're doing everything we possibly can, and we're employing people. I pay well over $50,000 to the Porirua City Council just in rates, personally. That now, I'm also getting bloody double whammied with it. I ask a question. How many people are employed to process these applications?
You want to ask that question now? Are we able to answer that question easily in this whole area, just for the sake of clarity?
Yeah, there are 2 different teams. There's a Democratic Services team. There is one person there who's specifically employed to, who's written this paper here, and then there are a team in our regulatory team. We've got a vacancy in that role at the moment, so there's one person who's doing it right now. So we've currently got 2 people at the moment, but we do have vacancies at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, I think we'll clarify some of that stuff perhaps later on when we get to deliberations.
I mean, the big point is that I can tell you now, most people within the Porirua Basin, if they want to go for a nice meal with their family or go and catch up with a group of friends, they don't come to Porirua. And that is a big problem. And to be perfectly frank, there's not a lot that attracts you guys, anybody is doing something. Have you ever wondered why there's hardly any offerings in Porirua? It's just not. We only recently, because when I had rushes, we had tuk Thai. That was my instigation, changing them from a food truck to go into my restaurant. That's the only Thai food. I mean, for goodness sake, we have one Chinese shop. It's just ludicrous, the lack of choice. So where are they going? We have, and I'd like to say, getting this information was great, but it would have been nice more than 2 days before having to present. 84 alcohol outlets within the Porirua Basin. Kapiti Coast has 143, soon to be 149, nearly twice, 70% higher. They have one person that does this, and the DLC. What I did do, I mean, being a business person, the truth is in the numbers, and unfortunately then I have to scrounge around and do a money scramble to find out how I pay for things and pay for people. I mean, we've got people that we have to keep paying just to keep them employed when there's not anything to do. You could shoot a shotgun through supply room yesterday. People aren't spending money, and we're keeping the place up, we're doing it up, and we haven't got gambling. So we're a real hospitality place. We've got no subsidiary incomes coming in at all, whereas the bulk of the others do. I took the time and I see that you need 5,000, an awful lot of money. So what I did is I went, right, what would you pay someone? Now that then equates to 8 people, 2,094 hours each, which is with a 40-hour week. Now if we divide that by the applications, that means they have 9.5 cases each. From that, they get nearly 5.5 weeks to work on one proposal. Kapiti, as I say, have 143 with one person. So as we are having to do in trimming and cutting and being daily aware of where our P&Ls are, where our money is, this clearly hasn't. That reeks of inefficiencies. If that was my business, I'd be going, what the hell's going on? Before I'd go and say, hey guys, see wise. Council is a business. You guys have got to treat it like a business. You can't spend money if you haven't got it. And that's what's so infuriating with everything that's going on at the moment. We've got all these beautiful things in cycleways, but you can't afford it. We can't afford this. We can't afford anything. I mean, and we have offered a decent service and expanded, like we have an off licence, so because we do craft beer. Now, just that fee alone, to have that ability takes us into a high. I mean, with a cookie cutter approach in which you're taking, we're high. But we have families, we have no violence, we have no problems, we have no inspection pushbacks or anything like that. Yet we're high just because we choose to look after a broader part of the market as we possibly can. So I tell you what, we won't be doing off-licence anymore. By doing all these sorts of things, it's just making us, I mean, I'm out. I've just about had a guts full It's too hard. It's too hard. I make no money, and I'm propping it up with other businesses which I should be putting my energy into. Thing is, I fell in love with hospitality when I opened Russia's, and I've gone through. I mean, and I have I don't have staff. I have a family, and I mean, and Kylie can advocate that it's a family. But these sorts of things, on top of everything else, with no profit, say like $5,000, that means $50,000 of turnover as a minimum will be designated just to pay for that $5,000 in fees, in real terms, after we've paid our bills, after we've paid our staff and our other overheads, including rates. Cold hard facts.
Mark, your 10 minutes is up, and I think you've made some very good points. I am going to allow one question from Councillor Wehapi.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you're a well-established hospitality man for many years across Porirua. It's very similar to other questions. So you're not against an increase? Are you against the scale of the increase that is proposed?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Scale and the scale, I mean, is it our problem? Why has it become our problem? Because
Just yes or no will do.
I think
Thank
you've
you,
made
Mark.
your point. Yeah, I think you've made your point, and I think the councillors have noted that, and you're not the only one that's talked about efficiencies and those.
well, I
sorts
mean,
of
the numbers speak for themselves.
We hear you. Okay, thank you very much for your submission. Right, can we now have Dale Gould and Jeff Goldworthy from the Beer Engine and Titahi Bay Cafe?
Officers, Jeff won't be joining us today because he was a bit busy. We've made a number of points around that you've already heard. There's not a lot extra to say. The things I wish to point out in my submission are as follows. One is that Mark made a very good point about 575 grand. In the 2.5 years that the Beer Engine has been trading, we have never had a visit from any of the officers, ever. They have not come to see our licences. They have not come to see our signs. They have not officially come in to say, hello, we're the officers. Now, I know that people have changed, they have, Eric left and there was a bit of a difficulty at that time having anybody, but I know you've got other people there, and all that somebody had to do was say, hey, we're here, justifying the reason you have to pay all this money. Secondarily, I got a request the other day to pay our invoices, please. I said, what invoices? Oh, the invoices you owe for your licence. What invoices? This was 3 months ago, and they still have not sent me the invoices, so I can pay you. If you want cost recovery, you've got to ask for the money, the important thing. And I guess the other point is that we don't, and this is to speak to T-Bay as well, we don't have a gambling offering that can help to pay for this kind of fee. I'm not against that fees should be paid by good, well-run hospitality outlets. However, there's also no way of showing how good you are. If nobody has felt the need to come visit us because we have had no troubles, because we have had no instances, we haven't even had, come look at our book, we haven't even had very many troubles at all. I think we have thrown out one man in 2 years, permanently. And everybody else, you ask to leave, they're doing okay, send them home, and they go home. Or we take them home. There's a lady that comes into my place that I drive home to make sure she gets home safely, because she only lives around the corner, but if she goes halfway and falls over, then it's my problem. Now, we have a liquor ban area in front of both of our businesses. Coppers hardly ever come to look at it, So Cliff from Mariner, he pointed out we've got a bunch of dudes who go and drink, buy a box down at the old off-lights and sit in the corner of that liquor ban area, drink the entire box, and a couple of times I've had to go down and say, yo mate, are you alive? Now that isn't good for anybody, and yet on licences, under the risk structure that you've got, I mean, I know that's not what we're talking about, but it is part of how the fees should go. we are blamed for terrible. What kind of people are you in the community? And yet there's a number of other venues in Te Tahi Bay which anecdotally you hear aren't being run so well in terms of fights and other problems and difficulties in alcohol-related harm. So if my business and Jeff, who's not here, his business are trying to provide a safe, nice place to have a couple of beers, come down for a nice little chat with your folks, have an old person come after they've been to the club, down to the club bar, perhaps they'll go out to a different place. They come down for a nice place to be, and yet, apparently, according to the risk structure, we're the bad people. We're a tavern, and taverns are bad. And I'm not saying it's anything the councillors can deal with, but it does, there isn't a mechanism for, well, you've done pretty well here, perhaps your fees should be less. Your enforcement, the cost for enforcement is 500 grand. Who am I paying it for? I presume I'm paying it for somebody else who isn't doing such a good job at looking after a licensed area. And the thing is, when it comes to a little cafe or a little bar that doesn't have, nice little bar that doesn't have other vices going on, well then this kind of increase, this kind of price as well, it's a lot. And so, the cafe gets rid of its booze. And that means that they don't do the community events anymore. They stop doing the quiz nights. They stop doing the birthday parties. They stop because you're not legally allowed to do that anymore. And so, while they're not making a lot out of their licensing, they've got a couple of taps, a couple of beers, no problem. You lose a significant portion of what makes it a nice little cafe and what makes our bar a nice little bar. I'm not saying that if we're paying $5,000 next year, or even in 4 years, to have our bar, I'm not saying we'll close, but it makes it bloody hard. And not a modest profit, well, that'd be lovely. Actually, any profit would be lovely. But that's a commercial reality. When you open a business, you expect a profit. It's a different question. But it is, it is a way of thinking about, well, your modest profit disappears out the window when you've got to keep paying fees like this. So why isn't there, and you don't have to ask this question, why isn't there a methodology for rewarding those who don't actually cost the council very much, and it will cost the authority very much in enforcement and very much in what these fees represent? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just stay there, Dale. Do we have a question from Councillor Philo for you?
Hey, thanks for coming in, Dale. I appreciate your submission and what you've just clarified with us, especially in terms of you touched on license and off license, and also just mentioned as well, which is something I've heard from a few of you, around how our risk is categorised and how the cookie cutter sort of approach for medium risk, low risk. And so I guess my question to you in your field, do you feel that, say, a off license venue which just supplies alcohol and doesn't supply all the other services that your establishment does, because currently, from what I can see, they're in the same category as you, which I believe means they pay the same fees as you. So, in your opinion, do you think that they should be in a higher category, or can you share your thoughts on those two, off license, on license?
Without trying to penalise off licenses for what they do and what I say next, then the answer is yes. A different approach needs to be understood to what those risks are. While some of the thinking around the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act is around the booze barns of the 80s, the massive and unchecked. Let's all drink until we can't see. This problem's had 70 years now of 6 o'clock swill hangover mentality. If once you leave an off license with 2 boxes of something cheap, they no longer have any feasible way of reducing harm that you do with that liquor. And liquor is indeed a drug, and it is indeed an easy one to get. But we are, as a species, keen on it. You can't stop. They can't stop what happens. At least in a hospital, in an unlicensed setting, you're supposed to, having just been through LCQ again and just got my duty managing it. You're really supposed to be looking after all of those people in there, reducing alcoholic harm. And so the off licenses, the supermarkets, and also they can afford this. And this is, I don't want to get into that part, but they, it's not a couple of dollars extra on that box is going to pay for these increases. When you're a small venue and you've got all the other things going on as well, and this is, you're supposed to be shown that you're a good person, a good citizen. If you're doing that and there isn't any way to, stop being penalised, well then it's an unfair situation.
No, unfortunately not, because you've already had your say. Sorry, it's just the way the protocol works. We have heard what you're saying. Anyway, are there any other questions from councillors?
Councillor Ford and I would just like clarification from the officers. We don't actually have control over setting the category, do we, for the premises? Can
Good
you
question. I
confirm
was
that?
going to ask the same thing. Can we? So that category, those categories are determined by whom? Just for the sake of.
Through the chair, it's determined by the Ministry of Justice and central government.
And I recognise that as there isn't anything a council can do about that. It's not available to you under bylaws. But there is something, bylaws can be made, I'm sure, that say, right, this is where you're starting from, and we can discount your risk, as it were. I don't know the right kind of wording for this, but to say, you have done very well. There is no problems here. You shouldn't be penalised for what the ministry is talking about, because central government doesn't have to see what individual rohis have to deal with their things.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that's the case, but it's something that we note and take under advisement. That's 10 minutes, so there are no other questions. That brings us to the end of submissions. We do have one other submitter, Andrew Galloway, who's not able to come in by Zoom today because we don't have any Zoom, and he will be at the 26th of May decision.
So when you move it, change.
Yes, yeah. So what I'd like to do is to thank all the submitters. I think you've made some excellent points which will be food for thought when we make our final decisions or final decision on the 26th of May at the next Te Puna Kōrero meeting. So now I'm going to move our recommendations, and specifically that we receive the report written by officers, receive the 6 oral submissions, thank you very much to submitters, and the 27 written submissions that we've had, which are a subset of. So I'll now move those recommendations. We had a seconder already. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, submitters. We're now going to move on with the rest of our meeting. So that brings us to item 7.2, which is the lease application at Plimmerton Domain, request to consult. I'm going to move the report and the recommendations to get them on the table. Do I have a seconder, please? Mayor Baker, thank you very much. Where is Matt? Oh, there he is, over there. Just very briefly, Matt, will you just come and, I assume everyone's read the report. I'll take questions. I mean, it's fairly clear cut, but do be there to answer any questions. So first Mayor Baker and then Councillor Hayward.
Yeah, it is fairly clear cut, but my question was, seeing GW are looking at charging for parking going forward at the train stations, does this then say that we approve them to making payments from this piece of land when we actually some of us don't agree with them charging at the train station when there is no bus service at Plimmerton? So how can we pick up what they're going to get if they're going to take it from our ratepayers? Sorry. You know what I'm saying, don't you?
Your point was noted and it was raised with Matt, and I think you have included it in here. I can't remember what number it was. But
yes.
Do answer.
Yes,
Mayor Baker.
through the chair. Yes, so I've noted that in paragraph 22 of my report. So if they are looking at paid parking in future, we may need to adjust lease charges and other parameters of any lease in the event one is approved. And the future deed of lease will need to include some clauses that give us a bit of flexibility in that regard, so we can make those adjustments. We haven't determined what the specific text of that looks like at this stage, but yes, we acknowledge that. Yeah, I acknowledge that will have to take place. Yes.
Yes, Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora anō. Thank you for the report. Mine actually is in a similar vein to the Mayor's as well. And so I'm just going to push you a little bit with regards to that wording. Is the trigger how's that trigger acknowledged by council? Is it perhaps done more as a time-based measure where the council can then opt in like an off-ramp in terms of having those conversations, or is it actually a specific trigger that is created by Greater Wellington publicly announcing that they're going to go to that model of on charging?
Thank you for that question through the chair. The short answer is I don't know. We haven't worked through the detail of what those clauses would look like, or what would need to necessarily be adjusted. But it would be looking at things like lease charging and if there's any other sort of operational parameters that we need to bring to bear. So we'd want it pretty broad, I think.
Certainly.
In that circumstance, and I suppose it seems somewhat analogous to the conversation we've just had in the previous item, to lease values, based on our fees and charges policy.
Through the chair, I think I've identified it in the by land valuation, essentially, is how we would initially.
The quantum of value, that would be not necessarily on the value of the land, but on some other measure. And I'm trying to understand with regards to that portion, does that fall into our fees and charges policies?
Mike, you'll answer.
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. So we haven't actually, as Matt said, Councillor, we haven't actually yet kind of figured out how we're going to do that. But what we will do in this lease is make sure we have provision so that when the time comes, we can come to you with some sensible advice around how we might structure those charges. But the truth is our current fees and charges is actually silent on this. So we're going to have to come back to you when the time comes to ask you to make some decisions based on sensible advice.
And it would be fair to say, would it not, that this would also apply to land that we have at Porirua Station, for example?
Correct.
Which may also be impacted by this. Okay. Yeah, one more question.
Yeah, one more sub, just so we're clear here, and it is to follow up on that last point with regards to land at Porirua Station. Does our current lease allow us to also have a similar arrangement should Greater Wellington undertake a paid service on that land?
Mike, do you want to answer that?
I think Julie might be best placed to answer that.
Through you, Chair, I don't believe the land at Porirua Station is owned by Porirua City. It is Greater Wellington and Kiwi Rail and maybe even a little bit of Wakatahi land.
Okay.
Julia's right. We
I thought
we
it was
actually
some.
transferred it some time ago, so there is no lands there.
That's good. Okay. Are there any other questions that councillors want to ask of Matt? Yes, certainly, Councillor Duncan.
Mine was just with the stormwater management. Are they going to be taking over? I mean, that's a really flood-prone area, that. So are they going to be taking over the responsibility for that? The attenuation pond area doesn't seem to be very large.
Through the chair, so we have the design we have currently in front of us. That's part of attachment 2. That's a concept design. We'll work very closely with Wellington Water to ensure that they achieve at least kind of hydraulic neutrality within their site. So they will be responsible for stormwater management within the site.
Given that it's already a car park, well, does that mean it'll be better than it is now, or worse? Yeah, well, anyway, look, it's a fair question, and I guess those issues will be worked through. There aren't going to be any miracles there for mitigating flood damage or the number of times that the area is flooded, I suspect, given its size. Any other questions from councillors? Okay, therefore I'm going to put the motion that we receive the report and agree to the Chief Executive giving public notice, and that things will work through from there. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. And that brings us to item 7.3. Thank you. You're going to stay there? Yes, Julia. Item 7.3 is this Waitangiroa Link Road, just some operational boundary amendments. Yes, thank you very much, Jeff. Are there any questions from councillors? Pretty straightforward. I think the diagrams and photographs are pretty clear. What's happening there? Any questions from anybody? No? Excellent. I'll therefore put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much for that. Right. I'm now going to, that brings us to the end of this meeting of TPK. I'm going to move a motion now that we move into public excluded. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. All those in favour?
Can we just